there's no denying that the Need for Speed franchise has went through a bit of an identity crisis. When you look at the last couple of years, a lot of different developers have dipped their hands into this series and thrown new features all over the place. When you look at games like Need for Speed The Run, that game had these cinematic run scenes that were just over the top and ridiculous. This game series in a bundle needed a bigger reboot, and we thought we had that in the Need for Speed 2016 reboot, and that was just bad. But I think Need for Speed Unbound kind of brings maybe that reboot that the series needs, because it leans, primarily towards the racing, the street racing culture, and I think it leans more towards that, and I think that's something that fans really, really want in the Need for Speed series. If you look at like over the last couple of games or over the whole franchise, this series has went a little bit, kind of leaned a little bit more towards pro racing, and then some other games leaned a little bit towards street racing, but this one has the bundle of the street racing culture, and I think Need for Speed Unbound is really good for that. Need for Speed Unbound. What is Need for Speed Unbound? It is a open world racing game developed by Criterion Games and published by you-know-who, Electronic Arts. Now, in this game, you play as a foster kid that is an apprentice at a garage, and one of your friends, or someone that you thought was your friend, ends up taking your car, and you now need to compete in one of the biggest events in Lakeshore called the Grand to get your car back. That is basically it. So what sets Need for Speed Unbound away from other racing games straight away is the art style. When you look at these anime cartoonish player models that blend in really well with the realistic car models, the realistic setting of Lakeshore, it really does work. When you look at some of the maybe some of the rumors that we saw about this game, some of the rumors we saw like circling around the internet, things like that, it's like they're going with this cartoon street style, and I didn't really think it was gonna work, but when you look at the gameplay and you look how Criterion Games set it all up, it actually looks really good, and it's something that not a lot of racers are doing nowadays. When you look at Forza, Gran Turismo, these games are very much realistic. This game kind of just takes a different direction, and I hope Criterion Games keeps it going, because I think this makes the game interesting. It was definitely a design choice that was thought of and thrown into the game. Now, what's even cooler about this is the graffiti style that kind of emphasizes what your car is doing at that time. So if you just got a whole bunch of big air off of a jump, you're gonna see wings come out of your car, you're gonna see lightning come out of your car. If you're doing like a really quick drift, you're gonna see all this cartoony kind of smoke come out. And I think people want to be fake and mad at this, but to be honest with you, it actually looks really good in this game, and I wouldn't have thought something like this would have worked. So I really like the art style in Need for Speed Unbound. So what kept me playing this game is the overall gameplay loop. So it's in a way, it's very much like how Persona was, where you have days out of the week you need to just complete races and do objectives to build up a lot of money and to basically upgrade your car, upgrade your garage, and stuff like that. This game is a very strong cash-based economy, and that's everything that this game is wrapped around, is getting cash, upgrading your car, things like that. So basically you go through a week, and on, I believe it's Saturday, you have to qualify for the Grand at that point, and you need about 20,000 to enter the qualifier, because a lot of these races in this game do require a buy-in. So you'll have to put in like $2,000, and let's say if you win and get in first place, you will get $6,000. So ultimately you end out with like $4,000. Quick maths. The cash-based economy, that's what's going to keep you racing, right? But then you start throwing in the heat, you start throwing in the police, where you're racing, and as you're racing, your heat will build up. Well, at that point, the police get a lot stronger. They start getting different kind of vehicles on you, they start getting helicopters on you, and you're at risk of losing that money. So if you go out on Tuesday and you make about $10,000, it's not in your bank account yet, basically. It's just in limbo. So at that point, the police can arrest you or destroy your car and then arrest you, and you end up losing $10,000. And in story mode, that is a good bit of money. It's a big chunk of money, especially if you're just starting out and you want to upgrade your car so you can go ahead and you can qualify in the grand race. So that is something that makes the game very difficult. And of course, the most important part of the gameplay is the driving. How does the driving feel in Need for Speed Unbound? Well, to me, it feels a lot more arcade-ish, as it should, than Forza and Gran Turismo's driving. You know, when you look at those two games, you see there's all these tuning options, and I'm not really the most car savvy person, so all these massive tuning options and all these options that you get to tune your car and change the way it drives and stuff like that, the less of it the better for me, because I don't know what those things mean and I don't know how they affect your driving. But in Need for Speed Unbound, especially when you're drifting, especially when you're driving just any car, not the cars don't feel different. So when you're drifting with one car, you're kind of drifting with the other ones. Yeah, there's little tweaks here and there that make them a little bit more slidier, or, you know, you can lean towards having a more drifting kind of car. But these, for the most part, these cars kind of drive the same, and I'm actually okay with that because the gameplay overall is a little bit more arcade-ish. Anybody can kind of pick up and get used to it, but it is hard to master, of course, because, you know, the racing overall can be very challenging. But I like the gameplay for that, and I think this is where Need for Speed needs to kind of lay his head and rest and stay in this, I guess, in this lane when it comes to arcade-ish and arcade racing. In Need for Speed Unbound, you're not really spoiled for choice here. You either play in the story or you play online. Now, I've talked about the story already. I'm going to talk a little bit about online. Online basically has the same features, except it's awful. I think that's the best I can describe it. I wish this mode had, you know, actual AI drivers in it instead of you just trying to race everybody else in the lobby, because you can try to win. You can go into a race and you're gonna have to wait for everybody to queue up in there even if they want to race. If they want to race in that exact event, it's ridiculous. You find yourself just racing against one other person, you and maybe somebody that, you know, ends up going into the race with you that wants to be in that event with you. And I think it's just a missed opportunity, and I get tired of Electronic Arts doing things like this. It seems like they have a good base of the game. You know, certain parts of the game are really good, and then you have other parts of the game that just fall flat on its face. It's just ridiculous, and I think the online mode was a big missed opportunity. You can have a really good story mode, and then the online mode is like just really mediocre, and I think that's what Need for Speed Unbound's online mode is like. Overall, I think that Need for Speed Unbound is a good Need for Speed game, and it's a good starting point for Criterion Games with this series. Yes, they made other Need for Speed games, but I think they're gonna build out from Need for Speed Unbound, definitely. And when you look at, you know, all the other games in the series, look at the most popular games. Need for Speed Underground, Need for Speed Underground 2, both super popular games that everybody loves. And I feel like Unbound is the only Need for Speed game that kind of feels, or kind of makes me feel reminiscent of those two games. Yeah, those games are basically better, but the line is getting blurred a little bit here, and hopefully Criterion Games can bring back the true identity of Need for Speed by building on top of Need for Speed Unbound. Thank you for coming back to the Seoul Dojo Gaming channel. My name is Curtis, and of course I write about video games, talk about video games, all that stuff. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Seoul Dojo Gaming channel, and I will check you guys later, all right? Peace.